Thanks, Lindsay. And thanks to ARM for inviting us to present. From our perspective, we think this is the preeminent meeting. There's convergence of folks that are dealing with some of the same scientific, technical, clinical, and manufacturing challenges, so it's great to be in good company. I'm going to continue the theme that Keith had been talking about and talk a little bit more about tissue. In this particular case, what we're focused on is the regeneration of cartilage tissue. As a note, we are a public company. I will be making a number of forward-looking statements today, so please refer to our SEC filings. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Our focus is on what many orthopedic surgeons describe as the holy grail of orthopedics, and that is cartilage in repair in the knee. In our particular case, what we are doing is symbiotically taking the patient's own cells, biomaterials, and bioengineering to create new functioning cartilage. And what that allows for is a much quicker surgery for the physician, importantly for the patient, much more rapid recovery, and we have durability of results in our long-term clinical trials. As noted, the initial focus is knee, but if you can fix knee cartilage, you can go anywhere else in the body, so this truly is a platform opportunity. What we had seen was highly statistically significant data in our phase 2 study that allowed us to design our phase 3 trial. We're looking at pain and functional endpoints, and that trial is expected to be enrolled by the second quarter of 2017. We've got a unique one-year primary endpoint that I'll walk you through. That gets us a data readout in mid-2018. This is covered by a special protocol assessment. For many years, these trials have been hard to define. They've been even harder to run, and we think that we've now turned the corner and are likely to wrap that up here in the next couple of years. We think this is an enormous market and one that will grow substantially with the introduction of a more meaningful therapy. Right now, there's about 500,000 procedures in the United States each year at our price point, several billion-dollar market opportunity. We think as you take that outside of the United States, for example, into Japan, where we've recently engaged, that market becomes even larger. And if we can fix in the knee, as I mentioned, there's also other tissues that we can take this into, other cartilage indications, and that was the genesis of a recent partnership with Intrexon, where we're looking at allogeneic opportunities as well. We've got a new management team, we've got great investors, and high-stature scientific advisory board really guiding this therapy to what we believe will be a successful launch and development of additional therapies as well. So when you think about the unmet need, this is really many of you in the room. These are healthy, active adults that do not have osteoarthritis, are not ready for a total knee replacement, and want to be able to turn back time with a regenerated piece of tissue. The current surgical and product therapies are inadequate for a number of reasons. You've got a long recovery, you've got a long time for the product to actually work, and then you've got durability concerns where just when it starts to work, it starts to fail. So what we're trying to do is really change that treatment paradigm, bring down the costs of care, and from a patient perspective, be able to get them back on their feet much more quickly. These are the weekend warriors. They have a defect, typically from acute trauma. It could be running, skiing, soccer. And what you get is a divot on the lower right-hand corner there that causes significant pain and loss of function. And if we think about the treatment therapies, one of which we're comparing against directly in our clinical trial, we look at it from a stakeholder perspective. So predominant number of procedures are done are debridement and microfracture. And in that perspective, from a patient perspective, you're either not treating the original issue, you've got a lengthy rehab, you've got a very costly process from a physician perspective, and payers are looking at this from a total treatment paradigm saying there has to be a better solution. And we think that's where NeoCart is going to be the new first-line therapy. What we have is an immediate pain reduction in cartilage regeneration. This is a quick and easy procedure so physicians can see more patients and they get the problem treated correctly the first time. We think that with our current price point of around $30,000, this is still cheaper than any of the therapies that are out there. And we think accelerated rehab is really going to be the key to that. Because we're making cartilage tissue ex vivo, we are no longer relying on the body to make cartilage. This has been such a challenge for physicians, for many of the surgical procedures. We take that variability off the table. It's a quick procedure, it's very easy for the physicians to do, and there are superior economics for them as well. So as we look at typical barriers to adoption for these cellular therapies, we're taking each of those off the table. Now the product has to work, and I'll show you that in just a couple of minutes. And what you'll see is time and time again, we hear anecdotally from physicians that they are seeing a dramatically different response with NeoCart than what they see with the current standard of care or other therapies. And that's because you've got a much quicker recovery, and evidence of this is the photo at the bottom part of the slide here. This is a patient from our phase 2. She was doing yoga at 3 months, and she tore her meniscus unrelated to NeoCart. So because we can't normally do biopsies, we were all excited. We got a picture, and what you can see is that the cartilage has largely regenerated as early as 3 months. And physicians say, that's great, you got a picture. They pause when they often hear us telling about this lady doing yoga at 3 months. Their current patients are never doing yoga at 3 months. And that's what's so different with NeoCart is they're back on their feet much more quickly, they're back running, they're back picking up their kids, and that is where we think patients will ask for this product with preference once launched. So we think that there are a number of patients that are currently sitting on the sidelines. I know I would be one of them when faced with the current treatment alternatives that are choosing not to opt in. We think that by bringing NeoCart in, more patients will actually opt in and treat, rather than sitting on the sidelines having multiple unsatisfactory procedures. So we believe that the market is much greater than the number of folks that are having the treatment today. For example, there's 1.2 million scopes each year. Only half of those patients have a surgery. So our target market is really microfracture, which we're comparing in a current clinical trial. Similarly, we don't want a procedure that requires months of training, multiple rep visits. This is something where physicians often will remark that they can do the procedure 15 to 20 minutes, skin to skin, no special training required. So we can go to the other 5,000 sports medicine surgeons that are waiting for a better therapy. This too will grow the market. Let me briefly take you through the product itself. What we do is we start with, at the upper left-hand corner, we take a biopsy from the patient. So this is a personalized cell therapy with the patient's own cells. We take that to our facility in Boston. We isolate and expand out the cells. What we're trying to do is return them to their juvenile phenotype. Because cartilage is in a vascular area, there's no propensity for it to heal. So what we're doing is mimicking how cartilage will grow as a juvenile. Cells are taken to their juvenile phenotype. They're then seeded into a type 1 collagen scaffold where the cells are sort of recognized as host cells. They see that they're at home. They start to then grow and proliferate. From there, we put it into a unique bioreactor that effectively walks the implant for about a week under the same conditions in the knee. So that physical pressure is the last part of the magic that allows us to create cartilage tissue with all the biomarkers of cartilage. So we're testing DNA, SGAG. We're looking at this histologically before the NeoCart implant leaves our facility. From there, what you end up with is an oval disc about the size of contact lens, about 2 millimeters thick, just as native cartilage is right now. We ship that to the physician. They cut it. They glue it in with a proprietary adhesive and close up the patient. And the best thing for the patient is to get back on their feet and continue to walk that implant because that allows the cartilage tissue to integrate. The big difference here is we're not trying to grow cartilage, we're just trying to integrate it. We've done that ex vivo, and that results in a dramatically different outcome. What we see clinically is a result of our unique tissue that we're able to make. So this is from our phase 2 study. It's a bit of an eye chart. I'm not going to take you through this in a lot of detail, but what we designed was a dual threshold responder analysis. This is something you typically see in cardiology, oncology, very rare in orthopedics. We're looking at pain and function, and what we're trying to tease out is the qualitative improvement that patients see. Many of the other procedures, they may have immediate pain reduction, but they don't have an improvement in function. We tease that out in this endpoint, and what we see in our phase 3 study, on which this trial is designed, is a 54 percentage point delta between NeoCart responders and microfracture responders. So you have to hit 2 clinically meaningful endpoints on pain and function coming out of the FDA guidance documentation before you're considered a responder. And we set this up as the same design for our phase 3. Real quick, another quick picture from our ongoing phase 3. We had another patient who interestingly tore her meniscus separately from NeoCart. And what you'll see is coverage as early as 8 weeks, and at 6 months, the implant is fully integrated. Because you have cartilage that is integrating quickly, you get those great clinical results that I just showed you. This is our phase 3 design. It's largely a much bigger version of our phase 2. Same 2-to-1 randomization against microfracture. These are historically very difficult trials to enroll. We have run out of steam multiple times over the last 6-7 years, or run out of money in that process. We're now back on track. and expect enrollment to be completed in the second quarter of 2017. As of just about a month and a half ago, we had 167 patients enrolled. We upped our guidance for year end and are literally counting down the months by which we will complete this trial. We're also not stopping there. We have a collaboration with Intrexon where we're evaluating the opportunity to create a master cell bank in the future. So there may be certain applications, or when we think about continuous manufacturing and scale post-launch, we're going to need an allogeneic opportunity to address these defects as well. Certain areas you can't have an autologous therapy. In certain regions they would prefer autologous, but we want to be able to offer both. In that context, we signed a partnership. We're looking at an induced pluripotent stem cell or reprogramming initiative. Already we've been able to demonstrate really compelling proof of concept data. Because we manufacture our NeoCarts ex vivo, we have very specific material specifications throughout that whole process. So we can actually show side by side the new NeoCarts that we developed with this master cell line. Several years out from a clinical development perspective, we're now moving into regulatory strategy discussions both here and then abroad, for example, in Japan. We're supported by a world-class advisory board. One of our scientific co-founders, Dr. Matsuno, is originally from Brigham and Women's Harvard Medical School, where the technology was founded. We have since brought on a number of new collaborators. This is one where we want to surround ourselves with the smartest physicians and really the smartest investigators in the industry. And in that context, we have brought in cell therapy experts, biomaterials experts, and bioengineering experts. This is a unique combination of cell therapy, biomaterials, and engineering that creates this tissue, and we've got some of the world's leading experts to help us with that. In summary, we have adequate cash. As of just last week, we noted that we closed a $30 million PIPE investment. David was kind enough to mention the investment by Sofinova Ventures many years ago in Histogenics, and they have been true partners for us. In that context, we have been trying to attract long-term investors that see the vision for this therapy, understand the complexity of cell therapy manufacturing and clinical development, and are in it for the long run. So we've brought on a number of great investors. These are investors and strategic partners, and we currently have about $46 million of cash on the balance sheet. That takes us all the way through not just enrollment, which was originally a big milestone for a number of investors and for companies that have failed along the way, and instead we were able to raise money all the way through our one-year superiority endpoint. We're the only ones in the industry that have a one-year endpoint because we think that we're the only ones that can hit it, and the investors wanted to make sure that we are well-funded through that process. So in summary, we've got an excellent balance sheet. We've got very little debt. This is an enormous market that we think has at least 1 million procedures plus each year and will grow to several billion-dollar in terms of dollar revenues. And we have been thinking about commercial scale for many years. So this is one of the things that we hear from many of the companies here presenting here, that you move from phase 1, you're moving into phase 2, and then you have the conversation about how do you actually commercialize this. We've been investing in manufacturing for 15 years. That allows us to launch with a 60+% gross margin, and we think grows from there. And based on analyst estimates, we think that this is a several $100 million market opportunity just a couple of years post-launch. The last thing we want to be able to do is launch this, get through the clinical trials, and not be able to manufacture it. So something that we're thinking about quite a bit. And we look forward to bringing to everyone news of the eventual completion of the trial, positive data, and launch of NeoCart in the future. Thank you.